Welcome to the Louie File. Today I want to touch on a Bible subject that is broad and it's somewhat controversial, I think, but let me just say this: tithing, giving a tenth of what you have to God. Is that something that a new covenant believer is commanded or under obligation to do? That's the question. You know, if you look back at the history of tithing throughout the Bible, you'll see that Abraham, way back in Genesis, long before the law was given, long before Moses was born, long before Isaac was born even, long before the nation of Israel even existed, we see a story where Abraham gave a tithe, gave a tenth to a man named Melchizedek. And he was a priest. He was a king. He was a king priest. I mean, he's a mysterious figure, but he came out of nowhere and he met up with Abraham after Abraham had slaughtered a whole bunch of people to rescue his nephew Lot. So Melchizedek, this priest, king priest, had come along and was greeting him and offered him bread and wine, and they had a great time there. And it says that Abraham offered him or gave him a tenth of the spoils of that battle. So there you have a tithe in the Old Covenant long before the law. So this was not something that God had put on Abraham that you must do this. This is the law. This was something that came out of Abraham's heart and his desire to give to this man, Melchizedek. And then if you jump ahead a little ways in the Bible story, you see Abraham's grandson, Jacob, and he promises God to give him a tenth of all he has as long as he stayed with him and kept him. So that was prior to the law. Now, eventually, giving a tithe or a tenth of your produce and your income and your wealth to God became part of the law. And part of the reason is the priests, the Levites, were not allowed by law to own property, and they didn't really have a job to have income. Their job was to work in the temple. And God had a way of providing for them by getting the rest of Israel to give a tenth of their income to take care of the Levites. And makes sense, right? That's a good thing. It's almost like a tax, I guess. Now, I don't know all the details about all of these things. I haven't researched in a while, but I'm just telling you from memory and what I do understand, and I would ask that you would look it up and you would clarify, see if I'm wrong on this. But in the Old Testament book of Malachi, we read an interesting thing where God says basically that Israel was robbing him by not giving a tenth to the temple. And then he gave a promise. He said, bring it into the storehouse, and I'll see if I don't open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing you cannot contain. Wow. That sounds pretty awesome. So it sounds like God is promising to bless us if we give a tenth to put into the storehouse. Well, let's see what this is really about. The storehouse was in the temple, and I believe, if I'm right here, I think what it was a place where they stored up stuff. Now, the Levites would eat their portion, but they would also had a food pantry, I guess, if you will, to feed needy people also. So this was all part of the Old Testament system. Now in the New Covenant, Jesus said, I didn't come to abolish the law, but I came to fulfill it. And he said not one jot or tittle is going to fall away from the law till it's all been fulfilled. But then on the cross he said, it is finished. So is that what was happening there? Did Jesus say it is finished, meaning the law had been fulfilled, sin had been dealt with, the whole thing was finished? So when he was raised back to life, God was saying to us that he accepted that sacrifice and it was finished. That was what he was saying. So in the New Testament, it's a whole different ballgame. You know, way back in Ezekiel, God promised, and in Jeremiah, he promised what the new covenant was going to be, and then in Hebrews 8, we have it reiterated. But in Ezekiel 36, verse 26 and 27, God promised, he said, I will take out your heart of stone and I'll give you a heart of flesh. And he said, and I will put my spirit in you and I will move you to keep my ordinances. So God's plan all along was to move into his people, not just into a building. And he didn't want a bunch of laws. I think he always wanted us to receive him and be in relation with him, get his heart, his mind, and his spirit, and then we would become one with him, and we would want to be generous because he's generous. He's a loving God. So if we're joined to a loving, generous God, he doesn't have to make laws to tell us to be givers. He just doesn't. So while some people in the New Covenant still say we tithe, I say it's even greater than a tenth. I say that when Christ moves into you, the Bible says you are bought with a price and you are not your own. Therefore, glorify God with your body. And I think he also means glorify God with your income. I think every cent that we have is really his, and it's up to us to take care of it wisely and use it for his kingdom. Whether it's putting gas in your vehicle, buying groceries, the clothes you wear, the glasses you buy, the places you go, the things you spend your money on, all reflect where your heart is. Think about that. I'll talk some more about this later. I don't want to go too long on this, but I'm not saying don't give. I'm saying there's no law. Don't be compelled in that way. Don't be manipulated into giving. Give because you love God and you love people. That's what God's really after. I'll talk to you some more next time. Thanks for watching.